Welcome everyone to this Royal Society of Biology Policy Late series, supported by the Policy Lates Working Group, which is part of an organisation within the Royal Society of Biology, comprising of the Biochemical Society, the British Pharmacological Society, the Society for Applied Microbiology, the Society for Experimental Biology, and the Physiological Society. The purpose of the series is to enable knowledge exchange and interdisciplinary, intersectorial interactions on bioscience policies. So not just the pure science, but what we do with the science. And if you don't know, the event will be recorded and then posted onto our Royal Society of Biology's YouTube channel. Previous topics have included things like antimicrobial resistance, climate change, and healthy aging. When the presenters are presenting, if you have any questions, just type them in the Q&A box, and I will then read them out later on at the end. What I will do is have all three speakers speak before we have questions. There'll be lots of time, perhaps nearly 40 minutes or so, even longer, for us to have questions on these different topics. I'm Professor Winston Morgan, and I have an interesting title. I'm Professor of Toxicology, Equity and Inclusive Practice, and that's an unusual professorial title. Normally, someone like me, with my background, I might become a Professor of Toxicology, but the reason I'm a Professor of Toxicology, Equity and Inclusive Practice is because during my career as a scientist, as a practicing scientist, for about half the time, I've had to take off my lab coat. I always tell this, step out of the laboratory and step into other areas to tackle inequalities either against me or people who look like me or students who look like me. And that's taken up a lot of my time and a lot of my research. And what I've had to do is, to a certain extent, use some of that research time to do these inequality work and the equity work. And initially, in my earlier career, that wasn't recognized as a path to, if you like, to becoming a professor. It's only very later on in my university and other institutions suddenly realized that, this is valuable work in addition to the science that I do. So that's why I have this kind of almost dual title of Professor of Toxicology, Equity and Inclusive Practice. But we really want to get to a time and a place where someone like me couldn't exist. Either I'm a professor of, inclusive practice, whatever that might be, or I'm a professor of toxicology, but not both. I should not have to spend my time doing all these things, right? Okay, so in terms of today, we're going to be talking about tackling inequalities in clinical research. And the importance of good clinical research has been particularly visible to the public with the emergence, I should say, of the COVID-19 pandemic and work undertaken to research and develop vaccines and therapeutics. Devastatingly, the pandemic has laid bare the inequalities in health outcomes amongst different communities in our society. So we've all seen the data from the Office for National Statistics where we saw different communities being affected. Now, although vaccines and therapeutics are generally intended for use across society, the diversity of trial participants in clinical trial populations hasn't always been what we'd expected, particularly in the UK. I know in the USA they have legal requirements to have certain groups in clinical trials, but in the UK that hasn't been the case. And the lack of appropriate representation can lead to differences in real-world health benefits and outcomes arising from the application of clinical trial results, equitable research design, etc. And what we want is, everyone in a society to be able to benefit from the research that we do. There's work to be done across many stages of research and development across the society to enable this. What I'm going to do before I have the speakers give their talk, what I'm going to try and do is basically do a short presentation. It looks a lot of slides, but it's a short presentation just to put some context. And then hopefully our speakers can take it from there. How have we got to the situation where there's inequalities in health research? I'm going to go really quickly through these slides, and I hope I can share them as I did before we did. In fact, I think I'm going to do that later because I can't see the slide for some unknown reason. It seems to have disappeared. So I'm going to move on to the first speaker. And because we're sort of running out of time. So the first speaker is Dr. Maria Augusta Arruda. Maria Augusta is Head of Research and Development at the University of Nottingham's Research Academy. Maria holds a BSc and a PhD in pharmacology from the State University of Rio de Janeiro, where she returned as a senior lecturer. Previous roles at the University of Nottingham have included the program lead in drug discovery with Brazil. She has many other roles, and one of the most interesting ones, given the context of this, is that Maria also chairs the University of Nottingham's Black, Asian, and Minority Ethnic Staff Network. Maria is going to be talking to you about inequalities in who is funded to carry out research and the need for a diverse representation in research and innovation. So, Maria, over to you.